your mind? Have you given up trying to find your way home? Wandering man, when will you wander on home? Wandering man, please will you stay a while? Will you tell me your fears and I'll tell you mine. Deep down we're all the same. Maybe I can understand your suffering and your pain. Please will you talk to me? Why won't you talk to me? Why walk away from me? Is it because the world's so hard to live with, or is it because you can't live with yourself? Too many questions and worries are with me, like, are you okay and how do you feel? Are you cold, are you tired, are you hungry, or is Mother Earth looking out for you? We've all made mistakes and we all will again, but love is the key that will conquer all. I've looked deep inside of the eyes of your soul and I've seen a love like I've never known. So when will you stop with your long self-destruction? When will you wander on home? There is your mind. Have you given up trying to find your way home? Wandering man, when will you wander on home? Wandering man, when will you wander on home? Wandering man, when will you wander on home?
Good evening, everyone. Hope you're having a wonderful Sunday. I am Lynx, and I'm from Norway, one of the co-hostesses over here.
Yes. Hello, everyone. My name's Katrina. I'm from the UK. And we are talking folklore and musicians tonight.
Yeah.
Hope you're all having a good evening.
Yeah, or a day, depending on where you are.
Yes.
I'm sorry. Didi in the chat, I speak excellent Norwegian. I bet you do.
It doesn't seem too bad to me, but I don't speak any.
Yeah, it can be a bit funny, so. Yeah. But that is how it
Indeed.
is with foreign languages. So I should know and speak a few.
I tried to learn Swedish once, and I couldn't get my head around some of the pronunciation.
Yeah.
There's a little too many closed mouth sort of sounds.
Yeah.
There's a few vowels which don't make sense to the English. Oh, thank you, Forno. Thank you very much for the diamond. Thank you very much indeed. Lovely to see you. But yeah. So yeah. Musicians and folklore. I mean, I know folklore and music are obviously very linked, and several of the stories we've read have indeed been ballads. And folk songs themselves have always got a story of some sort. I mean, folk music is often thought as, being the music that belongs to the people, the informal music, and the folk stories are that sort of organic literature as well. It's kind of belonging to the common people, and nobody's quite sure who wrote it. It's existing mostly outside of documentation and the historical record. And both are really very flexible, and you can put your own spin on them. And the stories and songs don't really belong to anyone in particular, although there might actually come to be definitive versions, which everyone likes the most. Definitely. That is some of the thoughts that I have when we want to talk about folklore and music, just to acknowledge that, yes, they're inherently linked for a start. Those two concepts, folk music and folklore.
Yeah. I definitely start to think of the old bards and skalds and all of that. With being of Germanic stock, that is sort of built in many ways. Not so much in how to put it, what we learn or do in day to day, but with our history from the Viking ages and everything. They used skalds to tell their stories, and it was always an oral tradition. And that's
Absolutely,
why yeah, so we don't have many written sources. So it's not a big leap from telling stories to singing stories and accompanying and music and everything. So
no, not really. I mean, it makes you kind of wonder. I don't know then if any of the stories from the Eddas would have been like sung and stuff like that. One could imagine so.
yeah.
Definitely. But we've had like similar traditions, especially with Celts and stuff, of there being a lot of music and a lot of traveling musicians. I mean, back in the day, if a traveling musician came to your village, then that might be the only entertainment that a peasant working in the fields enjoyed all year. So the arrival of minstrels is this huge, big event and a big deal. Well, only your village could afford to pay for those services. That's especially true in the medieval times. And there's going to be court musicians and minstrels employed by nobles or royalty, and those who are wandering minstrels who go around making what money they can in taverns and villages and stuff like that. So it seems like you wanted to be a court musician rather than a wandering minstrel. And when you were a wandering minstrel, your skill set had to be quite diverse. People want a show. So juggling and fire eating and what have you were apparently useful. And in many cases, you might get paid in food and shelter or goods. So you wanted to be a court musician, that seemed a lot more cushy. Definitely.
Yeah.
Totally. Yeah, same for the Britons. Yes, we do have a lot of bardic tradition. Ah, they got sent out to tell stories by lords. Well, that is certainly one good advertising tactic available to you in the medieval times. Yes. Yes, you are a bard. Shout out to Bard, by the way.
Mm-hmm.
Bard, British Artistic Reactionary Dissidents. Very good. Music group. Love the music group. They helped me pick some fiddle excerpts and stuff for tonight.
That's great.
A bard. No, a bard. The other type. Well, yeah, you're kind of that one too, yes. I was just shouting at your group, mate.
Are you getting complaints for shouting out this group? That is naughty.
Apparently. He's never happy, is he?
No. He's one of those who's always just cranky, sour, bitter, everything. Nah.
A very grumpy man.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, dear.
We have quite a few, not legends, but it seems to have been in Norway that maybe not every village or little place out in the countryside, but quite a few had one musician in the village. There is one song called translating off the top of my head, Per the Fiddler, and the song is basically just his struggle if he should have a cow or a fiddle, because he can't afford to have both. And with the Hardanger fiddle, the famous Norwegian one that has some strings underneath the usual strings.
Yes, them. I've heard them. Quite unique sound, yes.
Yeah. It was for an earlier story we did. I checked out a bit of music. I haven't really listened to much Norwegian folk music, but it's quite a few good things going on there. Some people really don't like the sound of that fiddle, and that's a main reason they don't listen to it, but I actually quite like it. Yeah.
That's another quite divisive one. But I like these traditional instruments. They can make some sounds that are out with what we're usually used to hearing. There's different possibilities with them, you know?
Mm-hmm.
Well, lyre is nice. Lyre is featured, is it not? Today, that is a segue.
Yeah, that is a segue. It's featured, but not in music, because I didn't have time to put in any music or sound effects tonight. Sorry, guys. I have literally spent 2 days recording now, so there wasn't enough time. It's actually been somewhat harrowing, not because of the work, but because there have been around 25 degrees outside, and I've really wanted to spend my time outside instead of sitting inside. But hey, what don't I do for you guys? Thank you, Burika, for hosting. Good to see you.
Yes. Hello.
And welcome, Samer, too.
Although I maybe don't click on the clip. Actually, don't click on strange things on the internet. Definitely not. Don't click that. But yeah. The lyre is indeed an instrument that Orpheus is playing, and I did actually share some lyre music in the chat, in the channel on Telegram, and I might share some more actually. It's a very nice instrument.
Yeah.
Haven't listened to it much. Underrated.
Yeah, I haven't listened that much either, but I have taken a listen to what they have on Ancient Greece Revisited. That is a YouTube channel I discovered this spring. It's quite interesting. They have a few music videos with traditional Greek lyre and folk songs. And they have some information on Greek mythology and quite a few interesting discussions with people, including Survive the Drive. So I definitely recommend them. So, hey.
We've been asked what is our Telegram, and I'll see if I can post a link to the channel in the D Live. We don't have a group yet, a talking group, but if you lot are interested in a talking group, we could possibly. It's adminning those sort of things and making sure it's good. Dee Dee's beat us to it. Thanks, Dee. But yes, we have been hardworking shadow cats and dragons.
Yeah,
that is true.
So tomorrow I will probably spend outside before we have a bit of cooler weather coming again. But yeah, I managed to finish my stories, so that is good.
That's good.
So yeah, the first story for tonight is Orpheus. I did sort of give that away last week, but it's a good story, so I hope everyone will enjoy it nonetheless. So yeah, let's play the story. Orpheus. Orpheus, with his lute made trees and mountain tops that freeze, bow themselves when he did sing. To his music plants and flowers, ever sprung as sun and showers, there had made a lasting spring. Everything that heard him play, even the billows of the sea, hung their heads and then laid by. In sweet music is such art, killing care and grief of heart, fall asleep or hearing die. Shakespeare. Are we not all lovers as Orpheus was, loving what is gone from us forever, and seeking it vainly in the solitudes and wilderness of the mind, and crying to Eurydice to come again? And are we not all foolish as Orpheus was, hoping by the agony of love and the ecstasy of will to win back Eurydice? And do we not all fail as Orpheus failed, because we forsake the way of the other world for the way of this world? Fiona MacLeod. It is the custom nowadays for scientists and for other scholarly people to take hold of the old myths and take them to pieces, and to find some deep hidden meaning in each part of the story. So you will find that some will tell you that Orpheus is the personification of the winds which tear up trees as they course along, chanting their wild music, and that Eurydice is the morning with its short-lived beauty. Others say that Orpheus is the mythological expression of the delight which music gives to the primitive races, while yet others accept without hesitation the idea that Orpheus is the sun that when day is done plunges into the black abyss of night in the vain hope of overtaking his lost bride, Eurydice, the rosy dawn. And whether they be right or wrong, it would seem that the sadness that comes to us sometimes as the day dies and the last of the sun rays vanish to leave the hills and valleys dark and cold, the sorrowful feeling that we cannot understand when, in country places, we hear music coming from far away, or listen to the plaintive song of the bird, are things that very specifically belong to the story of Orpheus. In the country of Thrace, surrounded by all the best gifts of the gods, Orpheus was born. His father was Apollo, the god of music and of song, his mother the muse Calliope. Apollo gave his little son a lyre, and himself taught him how to play it. It was not long before all the wild things in the woods of Thrace crept out from the green trees and thick undergrowth, and from the holes and caves in the rocks, to listen to the music that the child's fingers made. The coo of the dove to his mate, the flute-clear trill of the blackbird, the song of the lark, the liquid carol of the nightingale, all ceased when the boy made music. The winds that whispered their secrets to the trees owed him for their lord, and the proudest trees of the forest bowed their heads, that they might not miss one exquisite sigh that his fingers drew from the magical strings. Nor man nor beast lived in his day that he could not sway by the power of his melody. He played a lullaby, and all things slept. He played a love lilt, and the flowers sprang up in full bloom from the cold earth, and the dreaming red rosebud opened wide her velvet petals, and all the land seemed full of the loving echoes of the lilt he played. He played a war march, and afar off the sleeping tyrants of the forest sprang up, wide awake, and bared their angry teeth. And the untried youth of Thrace ran to beg their fathers to let them taste battle, while the scarred warriors felt on their thumbs the sharpness of the sword blades, and smiled well content. While they played, it would seem as though the very stones and rocks gained hearts. Nay, the whole heart of the universe became one great, palpitating, beautiful thing, an instrument from whose trembling strings was drawn out the music of Orpheus. He rose to great power and became a mighty prince of Thrace. Not his lute alone, but he himself played on the harp on the fair Eurydice and held it captive. It seemed as though, when they became man and wife, all happiness must be theirs. But although Hymen, the god of marriage, himself came to bless them on the day they wed, the omens on that day were against them. The torch that Hymen carried had no golden flame, but sent out pungent black smoke that made their eyes water. They feared they knew not what, but when soon afterwards, as Eurydice wandered with the nymphs, her companions, through the blue-shadowed woods of Thrace, the reason was discovered. A bold shepherd, who did not know her for a princess, saw Eurydice, and no sooner saw her than he loved her. He ran after her to proclaim to her his love, and she, afraid of his wild uncouthness, fled before him. She ran in her terror too swiftly to watch whither she went, and a poisonous snake that lurked amongst the fern bit the fair white foot that flitted like a butterfly across it. In agonized suffering, Eurydice died. Her spirit went to the land of the shades, and Orpheus was left broken-hearted. The sad winds that blow at night across the sea, the sobbing gale that tell of wreck and death, the birds that wail in the darkness for their mates, the sad soft whisper of the aspen leaves, and the leaves of the heavy-clad blue-black cypresses, all now were hushed, for greater than all, more full of bitter sorrow than any, arose the music of Orpheus, a long-drawn sob from a broken heart in the valley of the shadow of death. Grief came alike to gods and to men as they listened, but no comfort came to him from the expression of his sorrow. At length, when to bear his grief longer was impossible for him, Orpheus wandered to Olympus, and there besought Zeus to give him permission to seek his wife in the gloomy land of the shades. Zeus, moved by his anguish, granted the permission he sought, but solemnly warned him of the terrible perils of his undertaking. But the love of Orpheus was too perfect to know any fear. Thankfully he hastened to the dark cave on the side of the promontory of Taenarus, and soon arrived at the entrance of Hades. Dark and grim was the three-headed watchdog Cerberus, which guarded the door, and with the growls and the furious roaring of a wild beast athirst for his prey, it greeted Orpheus. But Orpheus touched his lute, and the brute, amazed, sank into silence. And still he played, and the dog would gently have licked the player's feet, and looked up in his face with its savage eyes full of the light that we see in the eyes of the dogs of this earth as they gaze with love at their masters. On then strode Orpheus, playing still, and the melody he drew from his lute passed before him into the realms of Pluto. Surely never were heard such strains. They told of perfect, tender love, of unending longing, of pain too great to end with death. Of all the beauties of the earth they sang, of the sorrow of the world, of all the world's desire, of things past, of things to come. And ever, though the song that the lute sang, there came, like a thread of silver that is woven in a black velvet pall, a limpid melody. It was as though a bird sang in the murk of night, and it spoke of peace and of hope and of the joy that knows no ending. Into the blackest depths of Hades the sounds sped on their way, and the hands of time stood still. From his bitter task of trying to quaff the stream that ever receded from the parched and burning lips, Tantalus ceased for a moment. The ceaseless course of Ixion's wheel was stayed. The vulture's relentless beak no longer tore at the Titan's liver. Sisyphus gave up his weary task of rolling the stone and sat on the rock to listen. The Danaides rested from the labor of drawing water in a sieve. For the first time the cheeks of the Furies were wet with tears, and the restless shades that came and went in the darkness, like dead autumn leaves driven by a winter gale, stood still to gaze and listen. Before the throne where Pluto and his queen Proserpine were seated, sable-clad and stern, the relentless fates at her feet, Orpheus still played on. And to Proserpine then came the living remembrance of all the joys of her girlhood by the blue Aegean Sea in the fair island of Sicily. Again she knew the fragrance and the beauty of the flowers of spring. Even into Hades the scent of the violets seemed to come, and fresh in her heart was the sorrow that had been hers on the day on which the ruthless king of darkness tore her away from her mother and from all that she held most dear. Silent she sat beside her frowning, stern-faced lord, but her eyes grew dim. When, with a quivering sigh, the music stopped, Orpheus fearlessly pled his cause, to let him have Eurydice, to give him back his more than life, to grant that he might lead her with him up to the light of heaven. That was his prayer. The eyes of Pluto and Proserpine did not dare meet, yet with one accord was their answer given. Eurydice should be given back to him, but only on one condition. Not until he had reached the light of earth again was he to turn around and look upon the face for a sight of which his eyes were tired with longing. Eagerly Orpheus complied, and with a heart almost breaking with gladness, he heard a call for Eurydice, and turned to retrace his way, with the light footfall of the little feet that he adored making music behind him. Too good a thing it seemed, too unbelievable a joy. She was there, quite close to him. Their days of happiness were not ended. His love had won her back, even from the land of darkness. All that he had not told her of that love while she was still on earth, he would tell her now. All that he had failed in before, he would make perfect now. The little limping foot, how it made his soul overflow with adoring tenderness. So near was she, he might even touch her, were he to stretch back his hand. And then there came to him a hideous doubt. What if Pluto had played him false? What if there followed him not Eurydice, but the mocking shade? As he climbed the steep ascent that led upwards to the light, his fear grew more cruelly real. Almost he could imagine that her footsteps had stopped, that when he reached the light he would find himself left once more to his cruel loneliness. Too overwhelming for him was the doubt. So nearly there they were, that the darkness was no longer that of night, but that of evening, when the long shadows fall upon the land, and there seemed no reason for Orpheus to wait. Swiftly he turned and found his wife behind him, but only for a moment she stayed. Her arms were thrown open, and Orpheus would fain have grasped her in his own, but before they could touch each other, Eurydice was borne from him back into the darkness. "Farewell," she said, "farewell," and her voice was a sigh of hopeless grief. In mad desperation Orpheus sought to follow her, but his attempt was vain. At the brink of the dark, fierce-flooded Acheron, the boat with its boatman, old Charon, lay ready to fare across to the further shore those whose future lay in the land of shades. To him ran Orpheus in clamorous anxiety to undo the evil he had wrought, but Charon angrily repulsed him. There was no place for such as Orpheus in his ferry boat. Only those who went, never to return, could find passage there. For 7 long days and 7 longer nights Orpheus waited beside the river, hoping that Charon would relent. But at last hope died, and he sought the depths of the forest of Thrace, where trees and rocks and beasts and birds were all his friends. He took his lyre again then and played such strains as would have won the ear of Pluto to have quite set free his half-regained Eurydice. Milton. Day and night he stayed in the shadow of the woodlands, all the sorrow of his heart expressing itself in the song of his lute. The fiercest beasts of the forest crawled to his feet and looked up at him with eyes full of pity. The song of the birds ceased, and when the wind moaned through the trees, they echoed his cry, "Eurydice, Eurydice." In the dawning hours it would seem to him that he saw her again, flitting, a thing of mist and rising sun, across the dimness of the woods. And when evening came and all things rested, and the night called out the mystery of the forest, again he would see her. In the long blue shadows of the trees she would stand. Up the woodland path she walked, where her little feet fluttered the dry leaves as she passed. Her face was white as a lily in the moonlight, and ever she held out her arms to Orpheus. At that elm's vista's end I trace dimly thy sad leave-taking face. Eurydice, Eurydice, the tremulous leaves repeat to me, Eurydice, Eurydice. Lowell. For Orpheus it was a good day when Jason, chief of the Argonauts, sought him out to bid him come with the other heroes and aid in the quest of the golden fleece. "Have I not had enough of toil and of weary wandering far and wide?" sighed Orpheus. "In vain is the skill of the voice which my goddess mother gave me. In vain I have sung and labored. In vain I went down to the dead and charmed all the kings of Hades to win back Eurydice, my bride. For I won her, my beloved, and lost her again the same day, and wandered away in my madness even to Egypt and the Libyan sands and the isles of all the seas, while I charmed in vain the hearts of men and the savage beasts and the trees and the lifeless stones with my magic harp and song, giving rest but finding none. But in the good ship Argo, Orpheus took his place with the others and sailed the watery ways. And the songs that Orpheus sang to his shipmates and tell of all their great adventures are called the songs of Orpheus or the Orphics to this day. Many were the mishaps and disasters that his music warded off. With it he lulled monsters to sleep. More powerful to work magic on the hearts of men were his melodies than were the songs of the sirens, when they tried to capture the Argonauts by their wiles, and in their downward, destroying rush his music checked mountains. When the quest of the Argonauts was ended, Orpheus returned to his own land of Thrace. As a hero he had fought and endured hardship, but his wounded soul remained unhealed. Again the trees listened to the songs of longing. Again they echoed, Eurydice, Eurydice. As he sat one day near a river in the stillness of the forest, there came from afar an ugly clamour of sound. It struck against the music of Orpheus' lute and slew it, as the coarse cries of the screaming gulls that fight for carrion slay the songs of a soaring lark. It was the day of the feast of Bacchus, and through the woods poured Bacchus and his bacchantes, a shameless rout, satyrs capering around them, centaurs neighing aloud. Long had the bacchantes hated the loyal poet-lover of one fair woman whose dwelling was with the shades. His ears were ever deaf to their passionate voices, his eyes blind to their passionate loveliness as they danced through the green trees, a riot of colour, of fierce beauty, of laughter and of mad song. Mad they were indeed this day, and in their madness the very existence of Orpheus was a thing not to be borne. At first they stoned him, but his music made the stones fall harmless at his feet. Then in a frenzy of cruelty, with the maniac lust to cause blood to flow, to know the joy of taking life, they threw themselves upon Orpheus and did him to death. From limb to limb they tore him, casting at last his head and his blood-stained lyre into the river. And still, as the water bore them on, the lyre murmured its last music, and the white lips of Orpheus still breathed of her whom at last he had gone to join in the shadowy land. Eurydice, Eurydice. How many others has died as well? It is the eternal struggle of brute force against a sweet and sublime intelligence inspired by heaven, whose kingdom is not of this world. In the heavens, as a bright constellation called Lyra, or Orpheus, the gods placed his lute, and to the place of his martyrdom came the Muses, and with loving care carried the fragments of the massacred body to Libet Lyra, at the foot of Mount Olympus, and there buried them. And there, unto this day, more sweetly than any other spot in any other land, the nightingale sings. For it sings of a love that knows no ending, of life after death, of a love so strong that it can conquer even death, the all-powerful. So, that was the myth of Orpheus. It's from the book where I found the Narcissus story as well. It's an old one that is quite beautiful, I think, where many old myths have been rewritten and beautifully so, I think.
Yeah, certainly is it's a story of a lot of ups and downs, and very tragic in many respects.
Definitely.
If he'd only just not looked. If he just hadn't looked.
Yeah, but when you get to that point where you are so desperate, I definitely get why he started doubting. I'm not the best versed on Hades, or Pluto, so I'm not sure how trustworthy he was. I haven't heard of him as being anyone who tended to trick people or anything, so I don't know. But when the longing gets too strong, you know.
Yes, indeed. Apologies if I am delayed a bit. I'm just also just checking the entropy as well. We do have an entropy.
Yeah.
If anybody would like to use it, I'll drop the link in the chats.
Yeah. The link is also in the YouTube description. I do think I managed to get the right one.
Yes. I think
Uh,
I got the wrong one. Did I? Yes. The entropy is in the description of the YouTube chat. So I'll just drop that in the D-Live chat there. There we go.
yeah,
Description of the YouTube video, I mean.
yeah. I do think it's missing an app there in the link. That's why I wasn't sure if it was the right one. Yes, I am technically challenged. So
Same. Very much same. I think I've got to click on it from the YouTube description and then share it that way, because if I share it from the YouTube description, it only gives you half the link. There we go. There we are.
oh, it says we're offline.
Offline. Yes. Oh dear. Well, we shall have to see what's going on with that.
Yeah, I had a slight crash on that browser, so it probably cut the stream as well. And yes, all of my my share of the lemons is going towards a new computer. This one wasn't bought with making content in mind, so it's struggling a bit. So yeah, while Katrina gets that one going, I could talk a bit more about Orpheus. Some of what I find interesting in that story, connected with musicians, is that it's sort of implied that he, while not the original music player, so to speak, he is, as the story tells, very connected to music, with Apollo being the god of music and poetry, and with his mother being a muse. But what I do think, with him then being not mortal per se, I'm not sure if he's considered a god either. But you know, becoming a prince and basically just sits around playing music all day. It seems like. So that gives a connection to music being tied to the gods and the divine. And his music is clearly magical, with, you know, he can get all the wild animals under control, and the three-headed dog that guards the entrance into Hades world, to the underworld, and you know, trees listen and repeats his Eurydice, Eurydice, and he can stop rocks from falling and everything, so it's definitely not your everyday music. And of course, it's definitely a tragedy. But I do wonder how much of what had happened before was his reason to go with Jason. You know, if Eurydice hadn't died, would he have joined them? And if so, how would that adventure go? So, yeah, really that thing with him being able to sway basically everyone with this music is very interesting.
Yeah, that is interesting. Indeed. By the way, I think we're live on Entropy now, if I've done that correctly. Soon to just stick the link in there. But it is saying we're live on Entropy, and I suppose any donations will come through there. And Entropy chat.
Yeah. And you know, the guys who run Entropy are really great.
Yes.
They are independent, they are young, and you know, have started their own company. They are free speech and everything, so if you can, definitely support them. I think there's talk of them also starting proper live streams in the future, not too long from now, so that would definitely be interesting. So yeah.
Certainly shall be. What's going on? How's YouTube? Nice to see Bards in the chat on YouTube, by the way.
Yeah.
Good to see you around.
It seems I started a pool party there.
Apparently. Apparently you did, a YouTube pool party.
Yeah. Oh, that autocorrect.
May I add that there are no crisps here. Nobody's getting any crisps. We don't give out crisps.
Okay, there's no display on Entropy. I will take my chances and restart that browser. I have to do a bit of cleaning on my computer.
I've just got a message from Full Thing Notes. Says test. I have seen them around before. I'm just gonna say hi. So I seem to be receiving messages here. But I don't know.
It's not working, so I can't do anything on my end.
Hello, Full Things. Can you see anything on Entropy? Entropy stream is working, says Sparky.
Okay, good.
Okay, nice. Thanks for the confirmation, chat. Good. But yeah, certainly, Orpheus. Yes, very tragic story. I think we were discussing in the chat about other similarly tragic Greek stories like Leander and Hero. Leander swimming across the Bosphorus every night to sing to Hero, and eventually drowning when the light that she put out for him went out. I do believe that Lynx's gamer headset must wait for the computer, says Dancing Penguin. Yes, indeed. The gaming headset will have to wait. The gaming headset that we decided Lynx wanted.
Well, it seems like the decision is made over my head.
Apparently.
Yeah.
This is a meme now.
Yeah. You know,
nice.
It's one of those things I really can't stand, where you have the microphone in your face all the time and you can't get away from it. So I tend to get a bit claustrophobic.
I don't know, like, it kind of bugs me sometimes how this big black circle thing is always in my peripheral vision. A little bit.
Yeah.
I'm like, what's the big black orb doing there? Oh yeah, it's my microphone.
Yeah. You do get used to it, but I have to say I'm quite happy that I have now a setup where I don't need
literally
that.
over your head.
Yeah. It's in my vision, but it's not a huge black thing. It's just a microphone.
Try wearing glasses. Who's that
Yeah.
for? Me or Lynx?
Well, I actually do need glasses, so.
As far
But
as I don't. I think I see things perfectly fine. Yeah. I don't need glasses yet.
I've always been at the verge of needing them. You know, I'm slightly farsighted, but it's not enough for me to need them daily. I don't need them to see. So then I always forget about them. But when I read a lot or do a lot of things on the computer, then I get tired. So glasses would definitely help with that.
If they do put a frame around your vision, yes. I mean, but they have lenses in them which make things look funny. Which, if you don't need them, is not helpful, right?
Yeah.
Sunglasses are not helpful indoors.
Not. I'm sorry, I had another browser crash, so I'm just re-entering the studio. And I am back. So yeah, it seems I have to.
What? What happened?
Yeah.
Stream gone? What? Who? What? Where?
Yeah, it was just my browser. So it seems like I have to clean out my computer in the next couple of days.
Dead air is a crime. No, only at your BBC Radio 4. If you have dead air then, then the nukes get launched. Then apparently ish gets serious. Don't want to be playing dead air on Radio 4. Every time that happens, we're all scrambling, panicking. Oh no, we're going to destroy the world. No, I think they've probably got a better protocol than that now.
Yeah. So I didn't panic, but I had
we got a crow of judgment.
Oh, what do we have to do to make up for that? I'm sorry.
Oh no.
My brain just went blank when suddenly my browser disappeared. So, yeah.
Crow of approval.
Ah, thank you.
Oh. I'm gonna save the crow of judgment. Crow of judgment needs to go on my stickers.
I need more sticker space. It's all.
I know. Feel doesn't let you have enough sticker space.
No, I did get an add-on to get more stickers, but I never figured out how it works. So, yes, I'm technically challenged. So yeah, getting back to musicians. You know, we have seen quite a few musicians so far in our stories. So they do seem to have that magical role of being sort of standing with one foot in the real world and one foot in the magic world. And
yes.
I'm never really sure if it's the person or the music or the instrument that facilitates it. But I do find it interesting that in Christian tradition and Jewish tradition from the Old Testament, if I remember correctly from our stream on the Smiths, every form of art came from the line of Cain.
On Smiths, not the Smiths.
The Smith and the Devil.
I was just making reference to a British band. I mean,
took
be interested to talk about Morrissey, wouldn't it? But
well, it does seem like an interesting guy. But I have to admit, my head doesn't always immediately pick up on old bands, so I do need to think for a few seconds every now and again. But I do think that's the origin of some very conservative Christian sects or dominations aren't very fond of music. We have a few of those in Norway. In northern Norway, there's one, and they don't even allow curtains, which must be quite difficult during summer, considering it's sunny all day long. But I always found it odd, that music and dancing and everything is bad.
Yeah.
But if they think that came from the line of Cain, then it's a bit more understandable. Then it's tied to the devil. So,
yes.
And there have been some interesting stories coming every now and again about the dancing sickness. Have you heard of that?
Yes, I have.
Yeah.
I have heard of the dancing sickness.
Yeah, that is quite interesting, where people literally dance themselves to death and can't stop. So, how much of that is, real stories or whatever's been going on there, I have no idea. I have seen quite a few theories on it. I watched a video, I think it was within the last year, that took a look at it. And I think the conclusion...
it's got a real neurological condition behind it.
Oh.
If I remember. I don't know.
Oh, I didn't. That wasn't in that video. I just.
Okay. What was the conclusion of that video? I might be thinking of someone else, to be honest.
I don't think they came to a conclusion. They couldn't really decide if it was real or not, and it mostly just laid out a few ideas. Everything from it being a real bewitchment, that people were bewitched to just dance until they dropped dead. And they took in the theory that it could be an extreme form for group adherence. When you just do whatever everyone else is doing. So basically that theory goes that
group psychology, mass psychosis, that kind of thing.
Yeah. It's been a long time since I saw that, so I don't really remember, but I also think they also mentioned that it was completely fake. So, literally disco fever.
Oh dear. Literally, yeah.
Yeah.
No, I can really see how music has, been mystified and associated with magical powers and stuff, because it is powerful. It gets you feeling emotions that sometimes you don't know why you're feeling them.
Yeah.
It's not a lot of... It's a thing that some people have a natural talent for, and others just... they try, but they can't get it. You know?
Yeah, yeah. And I'm sorry for bumping my head into the microphone just now. That's the downside of having the microphone above you.
Yeah.
And yeah, Nickelback would definitely be a cure for the dancing sickness.
Oh no.
They would, as you said in the chat, they would probably turn into Forrest Gump or something and just run. Run.
Yeah, indeed.
Yeah.
Does nobody dance to Pearl Jam? There are a lot of dances out there. I reckon there'd be one that could maybe be done to Pearl Jam. Oh, I've got Welsh in the chat again. Not bothering with that. That was the wrong place, was it? Well, let's not maybe let's not translate that Welsh. I don't know.
I do know that when you start posting stuff in the wrong chat, that can be hilarious at times. I once was joking around with a friend on Telegram, and I was leaving a voice note, and then I managed to leave the voice note in the wrong private chat. But at least it was a private chat, so
Oh dear.
it wasn't spicy, it was just silly. So no harm done. But you know, some things you do
Indeed.
want to keep to yourself.
It just says no, that's not what I'm saying. That's not what Dee Dee's saying. Guys. Oh dear.
Well, she's basically just a random combination of letters, I've concluded. No, I'm never being silly. Never. I'm the most serious person on the face of the earth.
Indeed. Very much. We know. Not gonna ask.
Yeah.
Wrong chat posting.
We're gonna let Didi have his secrets. So yeah, but as you mentioned, with music seeming to be a bit otherworldly or something, I definitely agree with that. In particular, when it's a really good musician, and in combination with, for example, a really good composer, with all of the emotions and everything it can elicit, and you know, when you listen to some classical pieces inside a church, you know, the building itself is designed for sound. That can be quite an amazing experience. So I definitely get why it's tied to more magic slash otherworldly slash heavenly stuff. So, and with the puller you can have, you know, it's easy to think that it's of the devil or evil, and we do kind of see that that theme, so to speak, with Orpheus's tragical end. With Bacchus and his followers. You know, because they as well are tied to, you know, dancing and singing and music and everything, but it seems like they like the less beautiful side of music, let's put it that way. And you know, one can tolerate the other. And in this story, I will try to get my tongue in order. We don't really see Orpheus's reaction, with his music being basically killed by by the partygoers, but I wouldn't think he was too happy about it. I definitely wouldn't be. So it's quite an interesting meeting, I would say.
Yeah, I would say.
Oh yes, Stabat Mater in a church. I would love to hear that. In a proper cathedral. It's one of the most beautiful choir pieces that I know of. I have one version of with two singers that I absolutely love. It's the tempo is slightly different from most other pieces I've heard, but it's definitely one of the best I've ever heard of that.
Yeah, I mean, that is absolutely wonderful when you can hear it in a church.
Yeah.
Absolutely wonderful piece.
Yeah.
Buddha had to leave to make cookies.
Baking cookies, eh?
Yep. It's an important task.
Yeah, but yeah, you
Cookies
can't
need
go.
baked.
Yeah, can't run out of baked cookies. So, not mentioning any numbers, of course. That would be rude. So, should we move over to our second story? We've gone for over an hour, so might be time.
Yeah, I would say so. Let's have a second story. And the second story tonight, following Orpheus, is The Wonderful Musician. And that is one of the Grimm's fairy tales. So yeah, enjoy.
Okay, roll story.
The Wonderful Musician. There was once a wonderful musician who went, quite forlorn, through a forest, and thought of all manner of things. And when nothing was left for him to think about, he said to himself, "Time is beginning to pass heavily with me here in the forest. I shall fetch hither a good companion for myself." Then he took his fiddle from his back and played it, so that it echoed through the trees. It was not long before a wolf came trotting through the thicket towards him. "Ah, here is a wolf coming. I have no desire for him," said the musician. But the wolf came nearer and said to him, "Ah, musician, how beautifully you play. I should like to learn that too." "It is soon learnt," the musician replied. "You only have to do all that I bid you." "O musician," said the wolf, "I will obey you as a scholar obeys his master." The musician bade him follow, and when they had gone, parted the way together, they came to an old oak tree, which was hollow inside, and cleft in the middle. "Look," said the musician, "if you will learn to fiddle, put your forepaws into this crevice." The wolf obeyed, but the musician quickly picked up a stone, and with one blow wedged his two paws so fast that he was forced to stay there like a prisoner. "Wait there until I come back again," said the musician, and went on his way. After a while, he again said to himself, "Time is beginning to pass heavily with me here in the forest. I will fetch hither another companion," and took his fiddle and again played in the forest. It was not long before a fox came creeping through the trees towards him. "Ah, there's a fox coming," said the musician. "I have no desire for him," The fox came up to him and said, "Oh dear, musician, how beautifully you play. I should like to learn that too." "That is soon learnt," said the musician. "You only have to do everything that I bid you." "Oh, musician," said the fox, "I will obey you as a scholar obeys his master. Follow me," said the musician. And when he had walked part of the way, they came to a footpath, with high bushes on both sides of it. There the musician stood still, and from one side bent a young hazel bush down to the ground, and put his foot on the end of it. Then he bent down a young tree from the other side as well, and said, "Now, little fox, if you will learn something, give me your left front paw." The fox obeyed, and the musician fastened his paw to the left bough. "Little fox," said he, "now reach me your right paw," and he tied it to the right bough. When he had examined whether the knots were firm enough, he let go. The bushes sprang up again, and jerked up the little fox so that it hung, struggling in the air. "Wait there till I come back again," said the musician, and went on his way. Again he said to himself, "Time is beginning to pass heavily with me here in the forest. I will fetch hither another companion." So he took his fiddle, and the sound echoed through the forest. Then a little hare came springing towards him. "Ah, a hare is coming," said the musician. "I do not want him." "Ah, dear musician," said the hare, "how beautifully you fiddle. I too should like to learn that." "That is soon learnt," said the musician. "You have only to do everything that I bid you." "Oh, musician," replied the little hare, "I will obey you as a scholar obeys his master." They went a part of the way together, until they came to an open space in the forest, where stood an aspen tree. The musician tied a long string round the little hare's neck, the other end of which he fastened to the tree. "Now briskly, little hare, run 20 times round the tree," cried the musician, and the little hare obeyed. When it had run round 20 times, and it had twisted the string 20 times round the trunk of the tree, and the little hare was caught, it let pull and tug as it liked. It only made the string cut into its tender neck. "Wait there till I come back," said the musician, and went onwards. The wolf, in the meantime, had pushed and pulled and bitten at the stone, and had worked so long that he had set his feet at liberty, and had drawn them once more out of the cleft. Full of anger and rage, he hurried after the musician, and wanted to tear him to pieces. When the fox saw him running, he began to lament, and cried with all his might, "Brother wolf, come to my help! The musician has betrayed me." Wolf drew down the little tree, bit the cord in two, and freed the fox, who went with him to take revenge on the musician. They found the tied-up hare, whom likewise they rescued. Then they all sought the enemy together. The musician had once more played his fiddle as he went on his way, and this time he had been more fortunate. The sound reached the ears of another poor woodcutter, whether he would or no, gave up his work, and came with his hatchet under his arm to listen to the music. "At last comes the right companion," said the musician, "for I was seeking a human being, and no wild beast." And he began to play so beautifully and delightfully that the poor man stood there as if bewitched, and his heart leaped with gladness. And thus he stood. The wolf, the fox, and the hare came up, and he saw well that they had some evil design. So he raised his glittering axe, and placed himself before the musician, as if to say, "Whoso wishes to touch him, let him beware, for he will have to deal with me." Then the beasts were terrified, and ran back into the forest. The musician, however, played once more to the man out of gratitude, then went onwards.
Okay, so that was Katrina's first story for tonight. While that was playing, I had another computer crash, or partially computer crash, so that was interesting.
Interesting
But
indeed.
yeah, so I have image on my monitor, but not on my proper computer. So yeah, I will have to play Doctor tonight, I think, or tomorrow. Of course, it happens in the middle of the stream. You know, that's
Yes. Always the way. Computers, they
yeah,
sense when you're busy and they pick their moments. They are
yeah,
developing sentience. They're too interconnected.
yeah. I do think it's telling me I wasn't intending to do this kind of work, so I'm just going to mess things up for you. So yeah, but the stream is going and you got your story and everything, so hopefully that will be enough to get us through the night, at least.
Yes, hopefully. But yes, that was The Wonderful Musician. And that is a German story, but I think a lot more Celtic fiddle in that. So maybe I should have delved into the world of German fiddle music, but they're not especially known for it. Actually, that bit at the end was Appalachian, and I can drop the links to the music in the chat, because some wonderful musicians got briefly sampled in that piece. But yeah, more sort of about my thoughts about the meaning of the story. I mean, the first thing I noticed was the way in which the animals got trapped. They were blinded by their own desire for something that they let themselves get led into traps without thinking. And wolves, well, they're often seen as greedy, or representations of selfishness, or at least they have been in the past. And he gets his paws that he would pounce on things with trapped. And foxes are cunning, but he gets tricked, and he gets the ground pulled out from underneath him. You know, he loses the ground under his feet, which is quite a metaphor for throwing someone off their balance like that. And hares are very prone to fright and panic. And the minstrel uses that because he knows the hare won't just calmly unwind himself. He will pull, and he will make the situation worse because he will panic. So that seems to be, I think, what those animals represent in the story. Now, you come along and to the end, and at the end, only the man is able to observe the music and its beauty without wishing to possess it. And he's also someone who's in the process of mastering nature. You know, he's chopping down trees, which is a thing that one can only do with a certain mastery of nature. One must have already learned how to forge metal and sharpen a blade and do a lot of stuff like that. So that seems to me like the animals aren't so much literal animals in this tale, but a commentary on certain aspects of the human psyche. I think you could certainly sort of look at it in that way.
Yeah. They do seem to be tied with different areas of emotion and how you react to everything. And it also points to how music will affect your feelings. You know, it can raise basically any feeling when you think about it. So that could definitely be a theme here, I think.
It could definitely be. And that is another sort of thing that one could consider. I mean, what I find quite interesting is the animals then, after they've been tricked and they haven't been deemed worthy to have the knowledge of this music, so they're mad now, and not even the beauty of the music will make them reconsider. They're going to go after the musician. The man recognizes the inherent value of the music, really, whether it's for him or not. And it's also a hierarchy because he doesn't ask the musician whether he can learn that. He seems to just recognize someone capable of a higher level of skill that he's like, okay, I'm not capable of that. And the musician, in return for him not expecting anything, doesn't harm him and gives him music. Because what? Again, those animals, they kind of assume he's going to teach them music, but for what payment, though? They don't really offer any. They just offer to listen to him, but it's not really an exchange. The sort of, whereas the woodcutter just comes to not ask anything and to appreciate a beautiful moment for what it is. And he isn't trying to hold on to it. He's not trying to chase it like the animals are doing. He's not trying to say, I will have that or no one will have it. He's not chasing the pleasure. He seems kind of more detached from the situation. That's sort of what I get from it anyway.
Yeah, you could see it as someone evolving with, from one animal to the other, and in the end to the man. My mind is blanking somewhat. So was he an older man, or is it not specified?
It isn't really specified about the age of the musician. The
No,
musician seems to be defined as ageless. The woodcutter, he seems to be a man who is still in the prime of his life, I think, working.
Yeah.
Again, like details like age in folktales, they can get a little bit hazy.
Yeah, they can. But where my thinking is going with that is, since he is in the woods, then he metaphorically is in the wilderness of feelings, if the animals are representing different feelings. And
That's
he
true.
has, he is immersed in it. He is there day in, day out. And so he has learned to master it. And, not let it affect him too much.
So it's representing that he has control over his emotions, even though he is, like all people, constantly living under the influence of his subconscious.
Yeah.
His subconscious urges, but he is able to overcome them enough to send them packing.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'd say I agree with that. I'd say that seems like what this represents on a psychological level.
Yeah.
I mean, again, the musician who's wandering through the woods looking for someone worthy to bestow music upon, which is definitely a higher civilized art form. It's not an animals thing. Animals cannot make music.
Well, that can be discussed.
Cats at 3 a.m. Is that music? Is it music? Well, it can be discussed, can't it, in one of the stories tonight? Depends what you classify. But yeah, he's wandering around looking for the worthy recipient of a transcendent gift. So that feels like it might have divine connotations to me, and certainly, again, Odin always bestowing the gift of poetry. I don't know who bestows really the gift of music. I mean, the Dagda has a harp and stuff like that.
Yeah, it's a bit hard when it's not specifically mentioned, but it's definitely related. Most lyrics are poetry set to music, so
that's true.
Though they do seem to. I think most music today is on. Oh, what grade is it? I think it's 3rd grade or something. What I've seen been mentioned a lot of times when it comes to rap is, I think that is 3rd grade level, and apparently Eminem is a few grades over, so his rap is particularly intelligent or something.
Yes, I can see that. Very filthy a lot of the time, but yeah, you can't deny some of the wordplay.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness, have I just admitted to listening to Eminem? Oh well, I'm cancelled.
Well, it's a bit hard not to listen to something when basically their music is played everywhere. I don't think I'm dating myself too much, but I do remember when that movie he did came out, where he's a factory worker and wants to make it as a rapper and everything. So during that time, it was basically impossible not to hear his songs. He was basically everywhere. So what's the case for me is that when someone mentions an artist's name, I have no idea.
Oh yeah.
When it's a new music, I have no idea who they are. I have no idea what their music sound like. I just see the name, and I might have listened to it in a store somewhere, but I try to keep my own music when I am in stores like that. So maybe not. But it took me, I think it took me a couple of years from when I first heard the name Lady Gaga to I knew that, oh, that is a Lady Gaga song. No, I don't follow, the top 10 or anything like that, so.
Not much good in it these days, not much good.
No.
Yeah. Let's see. Dancing Penguin reckons your computer is complaining that it's not getting enough Grand Mortalis. I don't think that's something you should give to computers. I'm not sure that Grand Mortalis would recommend that computers like Grand Mortalis.
No. If so, I think I would just keep to sprinkling the leaves on it without, keeping the water away. But then I might close it completely so that the tea didn't get into the keyboard and everything. So because then I'd have to vacuum it and all of that. It would be a whole lot of mess.
And why are you sprinkling tea on your computer? I don't know. What might appease it? An offering?
Yeah, if it wants Grandma Towler's tea, then that would have to be the way, to keep the water out. I don't usually give my computer tea, nor coffee for that matter. So
if you give it coffee, maybe it'll be faster. It could work.
Maybe, but I do think a bit of RAM might be better for that task.
Ram, yes.
Yeah.
That sounds more like it.
Yeah, that is my first step for first aid for this one. I am going to get a bit of more RAM in there. So,
Yes.
yeah.
Yeah. We have a pretty classic musician story tonight, do we not? We have the
Yeah.
Pied Piper.
Yeah, we do. And I found quite a fun version of it as well. That is by Robert Browning, I think his name was. And it's
Nice.
he made a ditty out of it. So yeah, it's not just, the short usual version, but he made a bit out of it, so it's quite fun. So
Nice.
let's hear how his ditty turned out. The Pied Piper of Hamelin. Hamelin's town in Brunswick, by famous Hanover city, the river Weser deep and wide, washes its walls on the southern side. A pleasanter spot you never spied, but when begins my ditty, almost 500 years ago, to see townsfolk suffer so from vermin was a pity. Rats, they fought the dogs and killed the cats, and bit the babies in the cradles, and ate the cheeses out of the vats, and licked the soup from the cook's own ladles, and split open the kegs of salted sprats, made nests inside men's Sunday hats, and even spoiled the women's chats by drowning their speaking with shrieking and squeaking in 50 different sharps and flats. At last the people in a body to the town hall came flocking. "'Tis clear," cried they, "our mayor's so noddy, and as for our corporation, shocking, to think we buy gowns lined with ermine, for those that can't or won't determine what the best do rid us of our vermin. You hope, because you're old and obese, to find in the furry civic robe ease. Rouse up, sirs, give your brains a racking, to find the remedy we're lacking, or sure as fate will send you packing." At this the mayor and corporation quaked with a mighty consternation. An hour they sat in council, at length the mayor broke silence. "For a guilder at my ermine gown sell, I wish I were a mile hence. It's easy to beat one rack one's brain. I'm sure my poor head aches again. I've scratched it so, and all in vain. Oh, for a trap, a trap, a trap." Just as he said this, what should hap at the chamber door but a gentle tap? "Bless us," cried the mayor, "what's that?" With the corporation he sat, looking little, though wondrous fat. Nor brighter was his eye, nor moister, than a too long opened oyster. Say, when at noon his paunch grew mutinous, for a plate of turtle, green and gluttonous, only a scraping of shoes on the mat, anything that sound like a rat makes my heart go pit-a-pat. "Come in," the mayor cried, looking bigger, and in did come the strangest figure. His square long coat from heel to head was half of yellow and half of red, and he himself was tall and thin, with sharp blue eyes each like a pin, and light loose hair yet swarthy skin, no tuft on cheek nor beard on chin, but lips where smiles went out and in. There was no guessing his kith and kin, and nobody could enough admire the tall man and his quaint attire. Quoth one, it was as my great-grandsire, starting up at the trump of doom's tone, had walked this way from his painted tombstone. He advanced to the council table, and "Please, your honours," said he, "I am able, by means of a secret charm, to draw all creatures living beneath the sun, that creep or swim or fly or run, after me, so as you never saw, and I chiefly use my charm on creatures that do people harm, the mole and toad and newt and viper, and people call me the Pied Piper." And here they noticed round his neck a scarf of red and yellow stripe, to match with his coat of self-same check, and at the scarf's end hung a pipe, and his fingers, they noticed, were ever straying, as if impatient to be playing upon this pipe, as low it dangled over his vesture, so old-fangled. "Yet," said he, "poor piper as I am, in Tartary I freed the cham, last June from his huge swarm of gnats. I eased in Asia the nism of the monstrous brood of vampire brats. And as for what your brains bewilders, if I can read your town of rats, will you give me 1,000 guilders? 1? 50,000 was the exclamation of the astonished mayor and corporation. Into the street the piper stepped, smiling first a little smile, as if he knew what magic slept in his quiet pipe the while. And then, like a musical adept, to blow the pipe his lips he wrinkled, and green and blue his sharp eyes twinkled, like a candle flame where salt is sprinkled. And ere 3 shrill notes the pipe uttered, you heard as if an army muttered. And the muttering grew to a grumbling, and the grumbling grew to a mighty rumbling. And out of the houses the rats came tumbling, grey rats, small rats, lean rats, brawny rats, brown rats, black rats, grey rats, tawny rats, grave old plodders, gay young friskers, fathers, mothers, uncles, cousins, cocking tails and pricking whiskers, families by tens and dozens, brothers, sisters, husbands, wives, follow the piper for their lives. From street to street he piped advancing, and step by step they followed dancing, until they came to the river Weser, wherein all plunged and perished, save one who stout as Caesar swam across and lived to carry, as he the manuscript he cherished, to Ratland home his commentary, which was, at the first shrill notes of the pipe, I heard the sound of scraping tripe, and putting apples wondrous ripe into cider presses gripe, and moving away of pickled tambours, and leaving a jar of conserve cupboards, and the drawing of the corks of trainal flasks, and the breaking the hoops of butter casks, and it seemed as if a voice, sweeter far than by harp or by psaltery, it breathed, called out, O rats, rejoice! The world is grown to one vast dry sultry. So munch on, crunch on, take your nuncheon, breakfast, supper, dinner, luncheon, and just as a bulky sugar puncheon, already staved like a great sun shone, glorious scarce an inch before me, just as methought it said, come bore me, I found a Weser rolling over me. You should have heard the Hamlin people ringing the bells till they rocked the steeple. Go, cried the mayor, and get long poles, poke out the nests and block up the holes. Consult with carpenters and builders, and leave in our town not a trace of the rats when suddenly up the face of the piper perked in the marketplace, with a first, you please, my 1,000 guilders. 1,000 guilders, the mayor looked blue. So did the corporation too, for council dinners made rare havoc with claret, moselle, vin de gras, hock, and half the money would replenish their cellars' biggest pot with Rhenish, to pay the sum to a wandering fellow with a gypsy coat of red and yellow. Beside, quoth the mayor with a knowing wink, our business was done at the river's brink. We saw with our eyes the vermin sink, and what's dead can come back to life, I think. So, friend, we are not the folks to shrink from duty of giving you something for drink, and a matter of money to put in your poke. But as for the guilders, what we spoke of them you very well know was in joke. Beside, our losses have made us thrifty. 1,000 guilders, come, take 50. The piper's face fell, and he cried, no trifling, I can't wait beside. I promised to visit by dinner time Baghdad, and accept the prime of the head cook's pottage all is rich in, for having left in the caliph's kitchen of a nest of scorpions no survivor. With him I proved no bargain driver, with you don't think I'll bait a stiver. And folks who put me in a passion may find me pipe to another fashion. How, cried the mayor, do you think I brook being worse treated than a cook? Insulted by a lazy ribald, with idle pipe and vesture piebald. You threaten us, fellow? Do your worst. Blow your pipe there till you burst. Once more he stepped into the street, and to his lips again laid his long pipe of smooth straight cane, and airy blew 3 notes, soft notes as yet musician's cunning never gave the enraptured air. There was a rustling that seemed like a bustling of merry crowds justling at pitching and hustling. Small feet were pattering, wooden shoes clattering, little hands clapping, and little tongues chattering, and like fowls in a farmyard when barley is scattering, out came the children running, all the little boys and girls, with rosy cheeks and flaxen curls, and sparkling eyes and teeth like pearls. Tripping and skipping ran merrily after the wonderful music with shouting and laughter. The mayor was dumb and the council stood as if they were changed into blocks of wood, unable to move a step or cry to the children merrily skipping by. Could only follow with the eye that joyous crowd at the piper's back, but how the mayor was on the rack and the wretched council's bosoms beat as the piper turned from the high street to where the Weser rolled his waters, right in the way of the sons and daughters. However, he turned from south to west, and to Koppelberg Hill his steps addressed, and after him the children pressed. Great was the joy in every breast. He can never cross that mighty top. He's forced to let the piping drop, and we shall see our children stop. When lo, as they reached the mountainside, a wondrous portal opened wide, as if a cavern was suddenly hollowed, and the piper advanced and the children's followed. And when all were in to the very last, the door in the mountainside shut fast. Did I say all? No, one was lame, and could not dance the whole of the way, and in years after, if he would blame his sadness, he used to say, "It's dull in our town since my playmates left. I can't forget that I'm bereft of all the pleasant sights they see, which the piper also promised me. For he led us, he said, to a joyous land, joining the town and just at hand, where waters gushed and fruit trees grew, and flowers put forth a fairer hue, and everything was strange and new. The sparrows were brighter than the peacock's hair, and the dogs outran our fallow deer, and honeybees had lost their stings, and horses were born with eagle wings. And just as I became assured my lame foot would be speedily cured, the music stopped and I stood still, and found myself outside the hill, left alone against my will, to go now limping as before, and never hear of that country more. Alas, alas for Hamlin, there came into many a burgher's pate a text which says that heaven's gate open to the rich at as easy rate as the needle's eye takes a camel in. The mayor sent east, west, north, and south to offer the piper by word of mouth, wherever it was men's lot to find him, silver and gold to his heart content, if only he returned the way he went, and bring the children behind him. But when they saw it was a lost endeavour, and the piper and dancers were gone forever, they made a decree that lawyers never should think their records dated duly, if after a day of the month and year these words did not as well appear. And so long after what happened here, on the 22nd of July, 1376, and the better in memory to fix the place of the children's last retreat, they called it the Pied Piper Street, where anyone playing on pipe or tabor were sure for the future to lose their labour, nor suffered they hostelry or tavern to shock with mirth a street so solemn. But opposite the place of the cavern they wrote a story on a column, and on the great church window painted the same to make the world acquainted how the children were stolen away, and there it stands to this very day. And I must not omit to say that in Transylvania there's a tribe of alien people that ascribe the outlandish ways and dress on which their neighbours lay such stress to their fathers and mothers having risen out of some subterranean prison into which they were trepanned long time ago in a mighty band out of Hamlin town in Brunswick land, but how or why they don't understand. So Willie, let you and me be wipers of scores out with all men, especially pipers, and whether the pipe was free from rats or from mice, if we promise them aught, let's keep our promise. So that was the ditty of the Pied Piper of Hamlin. I do think he did a great job with the story, filled it out quite a bit. Most of the other ones I saw were very short and didn't really go into much of any conversations and everything, so that one was a proper story and quite funny at times. You know, how rude are those rats interrupting the women's chat? You know, of all things, don't interrupt when women start blabbering. You know, isn't that one of...
That is correct.
Yeah, one of the big rules.
Don't interrupt me when I'm in my
Never.
flow.
No. That might elicit at least a tap on the head.
Oh, Jules says that was a great rendition.
Ah, thank you.
Hello, Jewel.
Hey, good to see you. I did cut out my epic ending of that story as I managed to knock over my keyboard, or rather it slipped down on its own. I have no idea what happened, so I had an epic crash at the end. But since the story didn't end with a crash, I felt it was a bit unnecessary to have in there. But
Yeah.
it was one of those moments where just, what happened?
Oh, no. Oh, dear.
So,
Yes.
yeah, it is said to be a true story, though the all of the facts aren't known. But there is a record, I think it was from 1440, that notes today is 200 years ago since our children left. So that would bring it to somewhere in the 1200s.
Yes. That is intriguing. I mean, I can see this discussion about what might have happened there and whether there was, say, a disease which wiped out the children and the piper was a figure symbolic of death. Or there's another modern interpretation alluding to the children being lured away by some sort of sect, heretic sect or something, to forests near Koppenbrugge for a ritual where they perished during a sudden landslide. I don't know where they quite got that from.
Yeah, there was also rumors that the children emerged elsewhere. You know, in the story here, it says that it was in Transylvania, and it was in that area. So that is quite intriguing, but something I find even more interesting is similar stories from other places. Even in England, there is a story about something similar happen. And there was one story from a small town near Vienna, where it said that basically the same thing happened, and then the piper lured all the children onto a boat and sailed away. And then it was said that there were rumors that the children were sold at the slave markets in northern Africa. And when the when the parents heard that, they lamented their thriftiness and refusal to pay. And there it's also some hypothesis that the piper who came was an army piper, and that he lured the children to go off into the 30-year war, which was raging at the time, and that everyone was killed and never came back. I've seen that explanation for several of those instances where it's near a great war. So
there's like theories about them being, I've definitely seen the theories about them being sold to recruiters from the Baltic regions, or the thing being a metaphor for selling off illegitimate children or orphans or other children, or about being a metaphor for the children of Hamlin, the the younger generation of Hamlin leaving Hameln, I think you would pronounce it, but a metaphor for their younger generation just leaving the town.
Mm-hmm.
I suppose for better work and stuff elsewhere.
Yeah, it's hard to know. As there's no proper record of it.
It's kind of weird that, well, it's not kind of weird because you always see it, but there's, different versions of this story over many places.
Yeah.
Serial child snatching flute players.
Yeah, time traveling child snatchers that goes all across Europe. There's several stories from Germanic areas, Germany, Austria, and all of that. I think there is stories from France, there's from Denmark, there's from England, so...
We got a Harold asking, is there any links to Hart's Mountains? I don't know exactly what that refers to, but I can probably look into that.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm not well versed in the German mountains, so it didn't come up. So it might be, but I don't know. I don't know what's special about Harz Mountains anyway. So
it's got they're sort of the highest ones in northern Germany. Apparently.
Okay.
Which I don't know. I didn't know because geography, not my strong point. I should get better at it.
Yeah. I seem to either remember the map or the names. So I should have those two parts of my brain better integrated, for sure.
Indeed. Yes. Remembering where things are in relation to other things. Not a strong suit to me.
Neither for me. For me, it's easier to look up a map beforehand and sort of memorize that, with streets and everything, and get a mental image of the map. Than just remembering the names. If I just go by the names, then I tend to forget.
Well, those mountains mentioned are supposedly a center for witchcraft. Well, I'll have to look into that. Look into that. Yeah. Witch mountains.
Sounds interesting. So, of course, it's also a very moral story, pay your dues, or bad things can happen, in particular if it's a stranger.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah, there's a few different versions of the children that was left behind. In this story, it was one boy who was lame. In other stories, it's a lame boy and a blind boy and a deaf boy or child. So the blind one could hear the music, but had trouble following, obviously. And the deaf one didn't hear the music, but just followed the other children, and for some reason got left behind. But there's also versions where it's there's not a lame boy that doesn't get in, but a boy who had run out without his jacket, and he ran back to get it and wasn't able to catch up in time, and so was left behind with the deaf one and the blind one. So those versions do, vary.
Yeah, that's interesting.
Yeah. And
no, it's certainly interesting to consider what that might mean thematically, I guess.
Yeah. It do lead my my thoughts to the three monkeys, hear no evil, see no evil, speak no evil. But the deaf one is also mute, and of course it doesn't pertain to the lame one. But there is definitely something to think about when it comes to themes.
Yeah, most certainly. Definitely.
Yeah.
But yeah, a very creepy one when you think about really the Pied Piper.
Yeah.
Quite creepy indeed when you consider that seems to have actually happened in the historical record.
Yeah.
Some kind of event wiped out town's children.
Definitely. And stories like that is also rooted in being somewhat skeptical of newcomers. It's for your own safety in many ways. And while it may not be complete hostility to any newcomer in town, you have to prove yourself. You have to prove that you're trustworthy, and that you don't just get up to much trouble. But it's I also think it's somewhat linked to travelers. People going from place to place.
Yeah.
Of course, not everyone is bad, but some are, and that is just a fact. Going to one city, robbing the place or something, and then just move along to the next one. And
exactly. Wandering can tend to that sort of lifestyle.
Yeah, and hey folks, good to see you. We also have sort of a modern version of that over from America. I've over the last few weeks watched a series done on Bonnie and Clyde by a YouTuber, and what they did and what many of the outlaws of that time did was that they, cruised around several states, and in that way were able to avoid the law. And need a new car? Oh, you just steal another one. Need some guns? Oh, you just raid an ammunition storage and everything. That is basically the outlaw way. So yeah, it's part of human nature in many ways. Some people want to live outside and basically just do what they want.
Yep. Oh, political's got to go to bed. All right.
Good night. Hope
we have the replay. Hopefully you can catch the rest.
Yeah, and hopefully you will get back to sleep. It's not fun waking up really, really early and not being able to sleep again. So have a good night.
Good night. Yeah. I lost track of what I was going to say. That
The bed
happens sometimes.
distracted you?
Yes, a little bit. Chat
Yeah,
distracted me.
that does happen. Um,
Remember the future. Hello. Thanks for the lemon.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Um,
Oh, hello, Fox. Yeah,
Yeah.
got a few people. Yeah, people been over at patriotic talk.
yeah.
Good to see you.
Definitely. I do think I've covered most I wanted to say on this story. Just
Yeah.
pointing out that yet again we see the magical aspects of music and swaying people to do what they want. And in this version, it was, the rats and children. Some of the other versions, there was one version where first a hermit came and played out a plague of ants, and then the next year a plague of locusts came and took I think it was it was a man. I think it was what's the word? A wood chopper.
A woodcutter.
Woodcutter.
Yeah.
Yeah. And the third time it was a dwarf. I don't remember the plague that came then. But first he came and took out some another plague of animals. That might have been mice or rats. And when he didn't get paid, for none of the other ones got paid. So, but the dwarf came back and piped out all the children and took them into the mountain. And there was several small villages in Germany, I think it was. So, and they had promised to have a monastery built, and didn't pay up. And when their children were taken, they promptly provided the money that was promised.
Indeed.
Yeah.
Well, as we seem to be learning tonight, pay your musicians.
Yeah.
Also, don't trust them. They can make you do things with their music.
Yeah, be careful.
It's bad and it causes feelings. You shouldn't listen to it.
Yeah, it might be a good advice for young girls.
Oh, yeah. 110%.
Yeah. The rock stars might not be the best ones to hang out with, even if they do make music you like.
Indeed. Yes.
Yeah.
That is true.
Yeah.
Some of these musicians don't make good boyfriend material.
No. Some of they do after they have matured a bit, but until then it's better to stay away in many cases.
Oh dear.
Yeah.
Unintentional dating advice again.
Yeah.
Well,
we do have to share our womanly wisdom, so
indeed,
there you go.
Yes. Well, we only have one more story for tonight. That is called the Bremen Town Musicians.
Yeah.
And I think we're using musicians in the loosest sense of the word. But we'll get on with the story, shall we?
Yeah, I just want to welcome Harold Chapman to our channel on Dila.
Hello.
So Yeah, you if you haven't seen us on if you just came in, then at least you can have our last story for tonight. So yeah,
Nice.
let's start.
The Bremen Town Musicians. A man had a donkey, who for long years had untiringly carried sacks to the mill, but whose strength was now failing, so that he was becoming less and less able to work. Then his master thought that he would no longer feed him, but the donkey noticed that it was not a good wind that was blowing, and ran away, setting forth on the road to Bremen, where he thought he could become a town musician. When he had gone a little way, he found a hunting dog lying in the road, who was panting like one who had run himself tired. "Why are you panting so, Grab hold?" said the donkey. "Oh," said the dog, "because I am old and getting weaker every day, and can no longer go hunting. My master wanted to kill me, so I ran off. But now, how should I earn my bread?" "Do you know what?" said the donkey. "I am going to Bremen, to become a town musician there. Come along and take up music too. I'll play the lute, and you can beat the drums." The dog was satisfied with that, and they went further. It didn't take long, for they came to a cat, sitting by the side of the road and making a face like 3 days of rainy weather. "What has crossed you, old beard licker?" said the donkey. "Oh," answered the cat, "who can be cheerful when his neck is at risk? I am getting on in years, and my teeth are getting dull, so I would rather sit behind the stove and purr than to chase around after mice. Therefore my mistress wanted to drown me, but I took off. Now good advice is scarce. Where should I go? Come with us to Bremen. After all, you understand night music. You can become a town musician there." The cat agreed, and went along. Then the 3 refugees came to a farmyard, and the rooster at the house was sitting on top of the gate, crying with all his might. "Your cries pierce one's marrow and bone," said the donkey. "What are you up to?" "I had just prophesied good weather," said the rooster, "because it is our dear Lady's day, when she washes the Christ child's shirts and wants to dry them. But because Sunday guests are coming tomorrow, the lady of the house has no mercy, and told the cook that she wants to eat me tomorrow in the soup, so I am supposed to let them cut off my head this evening. Now I am going to cry at the top of my voice as long as I can." "Hey now, Redhead," said the donkey. "Instead, come away with us. We're going to Bremen. You can always find something better than death. You have a good voice, and when we make music together, it will be very pleasing." The rooster was happy with the proposal, and all 4 went off together. However, they could not reach the city of Bremen in one day, and in the evening they came into a forest where they would spend the night. The donkey and the dog lay down under a big tree, but the cat and the rooster took to the branches. The rooster flew right to the top, where it was safest for him. Before falling asleep, he looked around once again in all 4 directions, and he thought that he saw a little spark burning in the distance. He hollered to his companions that there must be a house not too far away, for a light was shining. The donkey said, "Then we must get up and go there, for the lodging here is poor." The dog said that he could do well with a few bones and a little meat on them. Thus they set forth toward the place where the light was, and they soon saw it glistening more brightly, and it became larger and larger until they came to the front of a brightly lit robber's house. Donkey, the largest of them, approached the window and looked in. "What do you see, Grey Horse?" asked the rooster. "What do I see?" answered the donkey. "A table set with good things to eat and drink, and robbers sitting there enjoying themselves." "That would be something to us," said the rooster. "Oh, if we were there," said the donkey. Then the animals discussed how they might drive the robbers away, and at last they came upon a plan. The The donkey was to stand with his front feet on the window, the dog to jump on the donkey's back, the cat to climb on the dog, and finally the rooster would fly up and sit on the cat's head. When they had done that, at a signal, they began to make their music all together. The dog barked, the cat meowed, the donkey brayed, and the rooster crowed. Then they crashed through the window into the room, shattering the panes. The robbers jumped up at the terrible bellowing, thinking that a ghost was coming in, and fled in great fear out into the woods. Then the 4 companions seated themselves at the table and freely partook of the leftovers, eating as if they would get nothing more for 4 weeks. When the 4 minstrels were finished, they put out the light and looked for a place to sleep, each according to his nature and desire. The donkey lay down on the manure pile, the dog behind the door, the cat on the hearth next to the warm ashes, and the rooster sat on the beam of the roof. Because they were tired from their long journey, they soon fell asleep. When midnight had passed, and the robbers saw from the distance that the light was no longer burning in the house and everything appeared to be quiet, the captain said, "We shouldn't have let ourselves be chased off," and he told one of them to go back and investigate the house. The one they sent found everything still, and went into the kitchen to strike a light. He mistook the cat's glowing, fiery eyes for live coals, and held a sulphur match next to them, so that it would catch fire. But the cat didn't think this was funny, and jumped into his face, spitting and scratching. He was terribly frightened and ran back towards the door, but the dog, who was lying there, jumped and bit him in the leg. When he ran across the yard, past the manure pile, the donkey gave them a healthy blow with his hind foot, and the rooster, who had been wakened from his sleep by the noise, was now alert, and cried from the beam, "Cock-a-doodle-doo!" Then the robber ran as fast as he could back to his captain and said, "Oh, there is a horrible witch sitting in the house. She blew at me and scratched my face with her long fingers, and there is this man with a knife standing in front of the door, and he stabbed me in the leg, and a black monster is lying in the yard, and it struck at me with a wooden club. And the judge is sitting up there on the roof, and he was calling out, 'Bring the rascal here.' Then I did what I could to get away." From that time forth the robbers did not dare go back into the house. However, the 4 Bremen musicians liked it so well there that they never left again.
Oh, interesting music made by animals. I'm sure it was very musical, perfect harmonies and everything.
Very musical indeed. I mean, one could be postmodern about it, one could break down the notion of music, but
Yeah,
that would be pointless and stupid. So we won't.
yeah. I'm one of those who strongly oppose any atonal music.
Yes.
Yeah.
Atonality. Yeah, completely atonal. Nah. What's the point in that? Weird harmonies. Can get with. I'm just struggling to define. I've ever heard anything completely atonal.
Not completely, but for my ears, some jazz does.
Oh no. you just dissed jazz.
Yeah, I did.
Oh dear.
When
Oh no.
when they sound like they're out of tune, then yes. I do prefer the quote-unquote normal harmonies. So yeah, my ears are sensitive. Yes, I admit it.
Oh dear. Yes, well, we should probably not debate. We should probably not debate jazz.
Maybe not. I don't know enough about it to debate it anyway, so.
Indeed. No, but like that particular one, the Bremen Town Musicians, that does actually have a choral piece that was composed about it. And this is it. I'll drop it in the YouTube chat. I listened to the first bit of it. I don't like it. Don't like it. I feel like this is too weird for me. But you all can take a listen if you want to. As predicted, Judy says jazz is the best thing in the world after pies.
Well, he would say that.
Yes. Oh dear. But yeah, that's that particular choral piece, not to my liking, but it is the same as that story. I guess the main morals I took from that were, I guess one can say that the story is about how people have no respect for old and faithful things that have always served them well, or old and faithful companions, and perhaps they should. And that people's imaginations can twist things into very strange distortions of what they really were in fear and in the darkness. But there are a number of similar stories about it. It's an archetype, like the robber and the farm animals in Norwegian, the sheep and pig who set up house in the Finnish, the animals and the devil, Flemish, the choristers of Saint Gudule, the Scottish version of that story. There's an English version as well. You know, there's quite a lot of these similar tales of animal musicians in a gang. And apparently there's an American version of the story as well. So yeah, it's certainly captured the popular imagination as well, this one, because there was an opera created about it by Richard Mohaupt. It actually premiered in Bremen in 1949, and it's called Die Bremer Stadtmusikanten. And it was adapted for a British children's series as well called Wolves, Witches and Giants, which was narrated by Spike Milligan, with the action taking place in Birmingham, which sounds funny. Definitely. And it even got adopted by the Soviets as well. They made it into their own animated musical.
Oh, for a second there I thought they might have done a ballet movie about it. The Soviets did make one that's been very popular over here with the Wolf and the Seven Kids. You know, where there's song and there's dancing and singing and everything. And I think it was a state opera that did it, or state ballet that did it. And it got, I don't think it was dubbed into English, but the English version is the one that's been shown in Norway. And but I do think the actors or dancers learned at least to speak English if they didn't, you know, phonetically, if they didn't know all of the meaning and, you know, knew English per se. So for a second there I thought they had done more of that sort. It's actually one of my favorites from childhood.
Oh, nice. Yeah. We had a question in the chat, by the way, about banshees and whether they were in England or Northern Europe. I think we have discussed banshees before, but I will try and look at some information about that. Because yes, I do think England and Northern Europe have their banshee equivalents. I do think.
You know, the word banshee, I mostly associate with English-speaking countries, but I'm sure there's equivalents. I just don't know their names in other parts of Europe.
Is Norway a real place? Or did the elves just make it up to confuse the trolls?
Good question. I
don't know,
wouldn't.
thanks. Is Norway a real place?
I suppose you have.
Imaginary?
Oh, I'm definitely imaginary. I suppose you
Okay.
have. Anyone has to come over here to see if it's a real place or not. Maybe that's why so many people are flocking here.
Mm.
At times I wouldn't mind living in elven country, to be honest. Sounds like fun.
Hvis du kan læse dette her, du alt for mere tid på hænderne. That's more Norwegian.
Hvis du kan lese dette, har du for mye tid på hendene. If you can read this, you have too much time on your hands.
Dear. Or you're just Norwegian.
Yeah. Takes shorter time to read than read anything in English, for sure. So yes, now you did get a few words of actual Norwegian in...
Really obvious what that means now you say it. I can see the resemblances to certain words in English as well.
Yeah, but you know German as well, so I think you have an advantage there. So,
yeah.
You want us all to flock to Norway. Well, we do have a lot of room, so you will definitely be welcome.
Yes, we've had Troll Hunter mentioned in the chat before. 'Tis a good film.
Yeah, it is. I actually like that one. It's one of the few better Norwegian films. A Viking lady. Yes, I am the lynx in the picture. I am a Norwegian woman, and yeah, I live here, lived here all my life.
German isn't even real. It's just really bad Hungarian or some shiz.
Nothing is real for DD unless it's on the British Isles.
I'm gonna have to dispute that. Oh dear. Oh, you sound Scottish apparently.
You or me?
She's joking, she sounds Scottish to me. I think that was referring to you. Yeah.
Okay, so now I have been categorized as Lithuanian, Bulgarian, Irish, and now Scottish. Okay. It seems like I'm becoming pan-European.
Apparently.
For a time, I actually had several dialects mixed in with my native dialect when I was at university because, you know, I hang around with people from all over Norway, so I picked up everything from everywhere, basically. So I joked around that I was speaking all Norwegian, so I suppose that my accent and or language is all European now, so I'm branching out.
I mean, kind of same. I feel like I have now dialect from a few different regions of Britain. And people can get confused about where I'm actually from, which is good for me.
Well, that do tend to happen when you move around.
Yeah.
But I have had friends that's moved around a lot in childhood, and they speak perfect dialects different dialects, Norwegian dialects can be quite different, and switch on a dime. And it's quite unnerving, in particular when they go from, my accent, which is southeastern accent, to northern Norwegian accent, because the tonality is very differently. In northern Norway, they have the easiest time in learning English with an English accent, for example, because the tonality is basically identical. But
No,
not
it's
only
interesting.
that,
It's interesting. Yeah.
yeah, but also they speak in a lower tone.
Ah.
So suddenly, a friend of mine went, basically very much lower on me, and I I just totally lost it because she was speaking to a friend or a family member on the phone, and I just went.
Okay. Oh dear. The dragging.
Not the best thing when you have just taken a sip of beer. Let's just say it that way.
Oh dear. No, not the best thing. Apparently, I sound like a Geordie,
Ah,
which I've never had before, but okay. Oh dear. But yeah, I think yeah, we are definitely coming up to the end of the night, folks. It's about 10:30 where I'm at.
yeah,
Been a good show.
yeah, it has. Um, definitely mostly amazed that the stream is still up, considering my computer just decided not to play games with me tonight or with you guys. But it did keep the essentials on, so but I have to admit my fingers are itching to restart and all of that, see if it will even work. It will be exciting times when the stream is over.
I sound southern. English. Yeah, I think Dee was joking. Yeah, I sound southern English. So yeah, let's stick with that.
Yeah. So maybe one stream we can have a guessing game of where you're from.
Sure. I ain't saying. Oh dear.
Well, at least they're not speaking RP, so there's that.
Need to learn music. Same. I need to know about the notes and things.
I did play some instruments as a kid, but I'm one who plays by ear. I'm not really good with notes. I can do it when I'm alone and focus really hard, but if I play with other people, I completely lose my place on the notes. So I wasn't the best person for a band, let's just say that. Unless I play by ear, then it's somewhat of a different kind of music.
Yeah. No, like I'm not very musically talented with the instruments. I'm trying though, but yeah, maybe you lot will get to know about that if I get any good.
Yeah, my problem wasn't actually playing the instrument, it was playing by notes. When I stopped doing that, I was actually quite good. So maybe I should take it up again or something. I'm not sure that I have the time.
Yeah,
it's always the time. With this project, I am linguistically challenged. So, you know, if I was recording all my stories in Norwegian, it would be a lot faster.
Oh,
So,
yeah. It would be. I have pictures of guitars so people think I'm cool. It's all been a fraud and a lie. Never mind. Want me to do
Dancing
it?
Penguin have done some Swedish.
Oh yeah, Swedish. I
Yeah.
tried to I learned a bit of Swedish once. Forgotten most of it, but did learn it.
Yeah, well, if you don't use it, then you lose it. Yeah,
Exactly.
Norwegian, Swedish, and Danish are very similar, but it seems like Norwegians have the easiest time of understanding Danes and Swedes, and they have the worst time understanding us. That might be down to prejudice or something. I will be very Norwegian with that.
Prejudice.
Yeah, of course, you know.
Terrible.
Yeah, we can't let our rivalries go. So, but basically, if you learn one language, you will have a very easy time learning the others. So I would make the claim that
That's
Danish, spoken Danish, might be a bit harder to understand, but that's because it's just a porridge of sounds, basically. You know, in my accent, if I'm holding my tongue while I'm speaking, I sound Danish. So.
Oh dear. This sounds like the German versus Dutch. It does.
Yeah, yeah. You know, that's how it goes with neighboring people, you know. You
Indeed.
do need that rivalry.
You always got to have some bants. You always got to have a bit of a rivalry.
Yeah. It's
Well,
like with siblings.
Yeah. Exactly. Exactly. Oh dear. Well. I guess good night from my Devon County self and my Scottish friend.
Well, at least you're not in a tin can.
Indeed. At least I'm not in a tin can. This mic is better.
Yeah, you have exited the tin can. But we might, you know, call it a night before I start speaking Norwegian for the rest of the stream, considering DDJ can't understand me very well. So, you know, let's have him really not understanding me.
Indeed.
Yeah.
What he asks for, he shall get.
Yeah, be careful what you ask for.
Well, good night, folks.
Yeah, hope you have a wonderful Sunday, what is left of it, and a
Surprise,
wonderful
not
week.
Devon. I don't think you're gonna figure out where I'm from. But yeah.
Jeg blir utfordret i chatten her.
Oh, he dares you to speak Norwegian.
Ja, han gjør det, så ja, han kan få det. Jeg vet ikke hvor mye folk vil forstå hva jeg sier, men jeg skjønner hva jeg sier, og eventuelt andre skandinavere vil forstå hva jeg sier, så yeah, I think I will let it be with that.
Oh dear. I understood bits of that.
Oh, good. Well, I do have German and Swedish, even if you have forgotten it. So, hearing it again will bring it back.
No, true.
So, yeah.
True. Well, on that note, good night, everyone.
Yeah, good night. We will be back next Sunday.
Gute Nacht or good night or whatever we're going to say.
Good night. Yeah. So, yeah, we will be back next Sunday, same time, same place. And hope you have a wonderful evening and a wonderful week. So, good night.
Bye-bye. Night.